now. And that's what she did on that large slab, and it was very difficult to see on camera. So I was hoping this would help you visualize it better. Okay, so I would say that you want to sit down and you want to hold your tool kind of like a pencil, and lay your hand on your clay, holding the knife at that 45-degree angle. And then you're going to draw it towards you. You actually have the tip of the knife against the wood, and you're drawing the knife towards you. I don't think this would work in any other way, and you can move the board as you turn it, as you need to. And trying to keep the tip of the knife right here at the edge of the clay, so you're not making the clay any smaller at the bottom edge. Now MiZ RiVKA just made this slab, and we did not stop and let the slab stiffen just a little bit, so it's rather soft, which actually makes it harder to do this. So you want your slab to be stiffened just a little bit, because you don't want it to be like Jell-O. You want it to be more like hard butter to cut this. It's actually seems like it would be the opposite. The softer, the easier, but you want it to resist you just a little bit as you're doing this, so it has its own stability. Okay, you're going to save these pieces. Nobody's going to ever throw any of this away, because everything will be recycled. It's so expensive. So put it in a safe place to put it back for recycle. Okay, now I'm going to pick this up.
We can totally see it on camera.
Oh, you can see it? Okay, so there's your 45-degree angle.
Okay, well thank you, and we'll continue with the next step.
Hi. We need to make some slip. So what you're going to do is, once you cut your little slices off, you'll save a little bit. And I have just a tiny little bit of clay here, and we're making it bone dry, which means, you know, it's very hard and brittle, and it just breaks. So I'm going to take one of the mallets. I'm just going to crush it. And everybody's going to make their own slip. I'm not responsible for your slip. Make it into a powdery dust. And since you haven't used slip before, I guess I should tell you that it's the glue that holds the clay together. You think that's good enough?
I think that's good.
Then you're going to take your Play-Dohs and try to not get it on the floor. And if anybody has asthma, let somebody, well, I'll make your slip for you. And just get it into a little container. And then you're going to take a little water, just about like that, and I'll use some of Lucy's tools here.
Main thing is don't add too much water, just a tiny bit of water, because you only have a little bit of powder, and you want a creamy consistency, kind of like soft ice cream.
Looks like chocolate ice cream. Can you see it in there?
Yeah.
So you just mix it up, and this is your clay slip. Okay.
Okay.
We're on.
All right, here's what we're doing next. We're going to take these two pieces and assemble them to make this beginning form to turn it into the teapot. So I've got both pieces. This is cut at a 45, and this side is a 45. So the first thing I'm going to do is score it just a little bit. And I'm using a special tool that I bought that was actually from China. It's a piece of bone with a little comb made on the tip, but I think MiZ RiVKA is going to have plastic combs for you to do this little bit of scoring. And then you saw us make the slip, and I had some made up for myself too, and I'm just going to apply a little bit around here. And I like to use slip. Some people just use water here, just would wet this, and that might work, but I've been doing ceramics for a lot of time, teaching for 12 years, and I just always use slip, because my philosophy is, why not take a little extra time here and make sure that you don't have cracks later. If this part of the teapot develops a crack in the firing, you can't fix it, and you'll never be able to use it for tea, because water will go right out the crack. So I've scored and applied slip to both pieces. Now I'm going to pick this piece up, what I did before we turned on the camera, I'm going to show you because this is really important. I took a sponge with some water and I sponged the outside edge of this, the edge that's going to be curving this way, because we're asking that piece of clay to actually stretch on the outside as it curves around this piece. And if it's too dry, it's going to crack. So smoothing it with water allows the particles of clay to be very mobile and move as I stretch that clay around like this. Okay, and I'm matching it up right here. We made the pattern so that it was going to be a little bit larger. So it's going to overlap a bit, and I'm going to cut that also at a 45-degree angle. So this is the end of the slab that's a little shorter. It's not as thick as the rest. So I'm just, what I'm doing here, and you can't really probably see this, but I'm pressing the sides of the clay into the center circle to make sure it's fitting very tightly, because I want it all to touch and fit tightly. So now I'm going to take my little knife tool, I'm going to hold it at a 45-degree angle, I'm going to cut this like that.
Okay, we can see that.
Okay, so here we go. I'm just holding it again, kind of like a pencil. This knife blade has a one-way blade, so check for the sharp area. I'm going to try to go as straight down as I can.
We can't see it, but all we see is your arm. But that's okay.
Okay, so I'll move that back a little bit. See what I did? Can you see that now? It's kind of dark.
Yeah, we can totally see it.
Alright, so now I've got that 145, and now I need the other 45 to match right up to that. And my experience has shown me that you actually have to cut that next one a little bit longer than you think. So you just have to judge it, and you can and the other thing about cutting it a little longer than you think is you can always cut a little bit more off, but you can't put any more back on. Okay, so it is a bit long, but that's okay. Now I have a better sense of how much to cut. Can you see that? Okay. We need one of those cameras like the cooking show that's over top of this
Julia Child
thing, but we don't have one of those cameras because this is kind of like home movies. Okay, so that's a pretty good fit because I want to kind of push it together. So I'm just opening it a bit more, and I'm going to score it. Use my slip again. Okay, now I'm going to press it together here. And actually I'm letting it overlap just a little tiny bit. The slabs aren't exactly the same thickness at this one point. But one thing we learned about Yi-Xing pottery from the lady that taught us in the workshop is that if things overlap a little bit and you paddle them, it makes them stronger. So I'm going to show you what I mean by that. This is overlapping. Can you see this, MiZ RiVKA?
Yes.
Okay. It's a little overlapping. I'm going to paddle it.
Oh, show them what they
They don't know anything about the paddle.
Well, not yet. Oh, look at I put your name on it.
Okay, this is a paddle. And in my classroom, I always tell my students that it's really not, shouldn't be called a paddle, it should be called a tapper. Because we don't hardly paddle, we tap. So the translation almost could be not
Tapper.
a tapper, okay? Because paddle gives the impression that you're supposed to hit something very hard. But you're just tapping the clay into place. And I can't tap it too much because it's not ready yet. But just a little tapping is good. Okay, now, if you would like to see what I did,
there it is.
that's it. The next step, that.
Okay. Thank you very much.
On.
Okay, you guys, Ms. Taylor just, I just put this together, and it's not even sealed or anything on the bottom. And Ms. Taylor took it to the next step where she started paddling it, taking care of the inside, and then she paddled around here to start creating a shape, beginning of shape. And then once we take you to this step, then it's your responsibility to continue to shape it, because we can't do this whole thing because it would take hours. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take you to this point where, you know, you've got your basic shape. Then we'll add a bottom because you're going to need to do that for our foot. But until then, let's just try this. And on the inside, it's a little messy.
Leave it down at the back. There, thank you. That's good.
On the inside, it's a little messy. So you can take a tool, any kind of tool that you like that's maybe round, and just, because your fingers aren't long enough to get in there, just kind of join it there. We usually use worms, but because of this 45-degree angle, it doesn't seem like it's necessary. So students who had me a couple of years ago.
Now your braids are hanging in front of the picture. It's
I'm
funny,
sorry.
like a little worm's hanging from the top of the screen.
My little wormies. Okay. And so, and also on the inside, at this point, you probably will, if you haven't done it already, you're going to smooth it out. You can use a little sponge. I'll have sponge for you available. Make sure not to share your sponge with your friend unless you're using the same color clay. Okay. Now I'm going to just turn it upside down. And the first thing, Lucy, did you
Yeah, just
join it with your fingers?
just like that. Yeah.
I think I need to put a little water on. I like to put water on with this sponge.
There's a little edge that's going to be open here between the two slabs, and she's going to add a little water and just using her thumb, just you can see how she's joining that just slightly. You want the two pieces of clay that were separate to touch each other closely and get them to bond together so you don't have cracks later. And this is going to happen with the paddling, but this is the first step.
Okay. And everybody will have a turntable. They're not as nice as these, but I do have them for everyone. Okay, I'm going to make sure not to share your paddle with a person's paddle that had a different color clay, because we do have two colors. Oops, it's a little wet here. Okay, and we're going to tap it. Remember, not paddle it, tap it. It's the first time I've ever done this, you guys. I was just watching Ms. Taylor, so I'm a guinea pig here. Seems like the wet clay.
Your clay is a little wetter than mine. My clay is very stiff. I'm using a different color than MiZ RiVKA. You probably can't tell on camera, but mine is a darker brown color. We're not sure what color it'll look like fired. It could be black, and hers could be brown once it's fired. Hers looks kind of greenish brown, and mine looks chocolate brown.
I have no idea what color they'll be. They didn't mark the packages. So when they come out of the kiln, we'll know. So I'm finding that it's a little sticky here. And notice that I keep on moving moving it around in a circle. So okay, I'm not going to do this too long because you're going to get the idea.
The main thing is gentle tapping as you move the clay around. No too much pressure in one spot, and don't really paddle it. Just tap it. You don't want to make a dent. You just want to gently shape it to that rounded shape.
And then once you kind of just get started like that, then you can take, at school we have little, what are these called, rubbers?
I call them smoothing scrapers.
Smoothing scrapers?
Because rubbers is such a strange terminology for them.
Kids think it's sexual. So you can use one of these scrapers, or you can use your finger. I prefer using my finger, and I like to get it a little wet. And not on the top, but on the bottom. You can start pulling, just make sure that you have pressure, not pressure, but holding this hand while you're taking however comfortable. I like using these two fingers and just pushing in. Is that how you do it, Ms. Taylor?
Yeah, whatever feels like you're trying to convince the clay side of that teapot wall to curve out just a little bit, gently.
Yeah. And this is
And the reason she keeps adding water is that makes the clay more flexible.
And also your fingers don't stick like glue to the clay. But you don't want to put too much water because then it'll just collapse.
Yeah, it has to be just right.
And nobody really knows what's just right until they've been doing it for 19 years. Oh, I can see it starting to bulge already. And I'm hardly putting any pressure. You have to treat it very gently. And then I'm going to go back and forth. I'm going to continue doing this process back and forth until I start getting a more pleasant shape, or the shape that I want to do. And then we'll put the base on. But that's the beginning stages.